Hi everyone, this is Imtiaz from the Talking Booth, and today we are going to talk about different mental health issues. So mental health এর ব্যাপারটা হচ্ছে যে it is a very important thing to discuss about, especially in our culture and in our society. Not many people like to talk about mental issues, mental problems. ঢাকা ট্রিবিউনে একটা রেফারেন্স দেখছিলাম, সেখানে দেখলাম যে about 17% of the young people, young adults suffer from different type of mental disorders, which is like 2 out of 10 people are suffering from mental disorders. So it is very important to address it first and to understand when and how to address these issues and whom to consult with when you feel like something is wrong with you. To talk about this mental health issues today, I'm really happy to have Tanzi with me. So Tanzi is looking after the corporate social responsibility and sustainable development team of a very popular e-commerce company, Daraz Bangladesh. So Tanzi, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you very much.
All right.
So I think it's great that you've started off with the best question, how are you?
Yeah.
So I mean, if I were to turn this around and I asked you, how are you, right?
Yeah.
Tell me.
I'm doing good, alhamdulillah. So far I'm doing good.
How are you actually? Don't tell me how you are as in alhamdulillah, but how are you actually? And how many times have you answered that question truthfully?
That's a very difficult question, to be very honest, because whenever somebody asks you how are you, then instantly you think about are you physically okay? Is there something very unusual with you that from yesterday, do you notice something significant different? And if you don't see that too much of deviation, then you instantly, your brain instructs you to answer that I'm fine, right?
Yes, but how many times have you also said that you're fine when you were probably feeling sad, let's say?
Yeah, it happens.
So I think, how are you is always the most important question that we have to ask, while remembering that it's not necessarily the question that's answered honestly. And for that reason, I feel like one thing, when it comes to saying that how are you, we're always forced to say that we feel good and it's a positive answer, because as long as I express positivity to you, then you will also interact with me, because it's like, oh, this person's not sad. But the minute somebody answers truthfully how you are and they say not feeling good or I'm feeling sad, then the conversation you have to invest in a longer time.
Yes.
So a lot of the time we end up lying to ourselves, our people around us, and actually essentially what we're doing is denying ourselves the truth. Sometimes you're not okay, and I think it's okay to be able to say, hey, today I'm not having a good day, or today I'm not okay. And I think that we should work towards actually, first and foremost, truthfully answering, how are you?
Very nicely explained, Tanzi. So the first step is to be honest with our answers.
For
and
sure.
To think about it from an open mind.
Yeah.
And the other person who's asking the question about how the other person is, so he should also be ready to accept that if somebody says that I'm not doing okay,
yes,
then to approach that person with a positive mind and try to help him.
We always assume and associate emotions or being expressive of our emotions as a bad thing, and that we're always disencouraged from doing this. I think even like if I were to be more blunt about this, but I'm sure as a man you've had to put up with a lot of social pressures that necessarily are not really mandatory. It's not an obligation.
Yeah.
You don't have to fulfill them. Like, why is it that boys are taught to not cry but girls are taught to cry? Like, it's not okay. Emotions exist in all of us. I mean, I remember like after my after I moved from Germany, one of the few things that I think I kept on addressing a lot of questions was like about the racism and what I faced over there. And my answer was, I find racism to be one of the most stupidest things in the world, because at the end of the day, I heard this from someone, you cut me up, you're still going to find the same set of organs you're going to find in yourself.
Absolutely.
So what's the difference? My skin color? Just a bit of melanin production, that's what makes the difference between who you are, your status, and your life. So it's the same. You can't judge a book by its cover. And also, I think it's very important that when somebody says they're not feeling good, it doesn't also mean that they need help, or that you have some sort of responsibility to address it or even to make it better. Sometimes you also have to define your own boundaries and accept that you cannot solve everyone's problem. So sometimes all you do have to do is listen and respond respectfully. It's not about responding correct. It's about respectfully acknowledge. It's really a game of empathy, to be very honest. You just have to empathize with the person. If you don't want to extend the conversation, okay, well, I'm sorry you're not feeling so good. If you want to talk, let me know. Or even, you can try like, yeah, well, it's rough. Find a way to, immediately, forgot the word now. Sorry.
No, I can understand that. I mean, being empathetic for the other person, it's one of the most important things that we need to realize at this time.
Relatable. That's the word.
Relatable.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Make sure that it's relatable. Like if you don't have anything to say, and if you cannot find anything relatable to say, then just sometimes it even just helps to say, I don't know what to say, or I think you're right, or hey. But I mean, I think one of the worst is it's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be okay.
It's fine.
It happens to everybody.
ঠিক হয়ে যাবে আরে এটা নিয়ে চিন্তা করো না চিন্তা না করলেই তো হয় I think these are very insensitive statements we put out, and of course it's not done with malintention. So I think when you're the receiver of these comments, you also have to remind yourself that this person doesn't really understand or doesn't actually know. So but like I always want to tell people that when you're telling somebody to calm down, like if they're not calm and they're hyperactive, I think that is the problem, and telling them to calm down is not going to really help. Instead, I mean, it's basically like, you're pointing at someone and you're saying, ha ha ha, you're wearing a red t-shirt. Hami lal t-shirt pursi, the solution taki. So it's just like, don't tell someone to calm down. Find ways of, understanding what their trigger is when they're not calm. If it's a child and you see them throwing a tantrum, then, what do? You address it as a parent and you go, you can't behave like this, can't do this, or, your tantrum is inappropriate. But why is it not the same with someone who's feeling sad?
What are the effective ways of addressing it? Like when and how should a person address it?
First and foremost, I think with everything, we have to accept that everyone is built differently and everyone has their own process. And maybe what I might be describing over here is not necessarily fit for some people. It might be for some. It might not be at all for other people. And that's okay. We all have to continue in life, the same way we do with other physical ailments. We have to take it step by step.
Yeah.
And the thing with mental health disorder is that I think because of the cultural stigma, it takes a really long time to acknowledge it, even in certain cases. So, I mean, the first step is really, I think, when you have to be able to self-recognize, in my personal opinion, of course, that you maybe things are not how you want them to be, and they're not going how you need them to be, and your behavior is changing, and it's affecting not only your life but the lives of other people around you, and it's affecting your relationships. I think that's usually when I would personally say that maybe then it's time to maybe seek a third person or someone else with a different opinion, because this is I feel like maybe you'll agree with me on this. I mean, we all tend to get into this very toxic circle where we think that, okay, I'm feeling bad, I'm going to call my best friend, I'm going to talk to him. And then as you're talking and you're describing, to a certain extent we forget that our best friends are also biased. And sometimes our best friends are parents. They might not tell us everything so clearly because they know you personally and they have a relationship that, you know, makes them invest. So what you're actually getting is a very biased response, and that's not necessarily helpful. So inviting a third person into your life is only just opening your mind up to a different perspective of maybe what's going on that you need to change. I think with everybody, when I say like acceptance or acknowledgement, I think what we all should do is that we should sit down, take some time, and sometimes evaluate our life and our actions and truly understand the implications of what and how we behave affects other people. Because once you start seeing it from a different perspective, then you're only going to be able to change. Why is it that, like, for example, why are consultants brought into companies? Because
they bring in a different perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. They're gonna view the same thing but with a fresh set of eyes. And it's not a comment on current management that they're not able to see it. Of course not. It's not. That's normal. So it's the same.
So Tanzi, what you're saying is a person needs to consult with a third person and, you know, explain him his condition and how that person is, you know, like if we live in a biased society. So it is very critical how the other person, be it his friend or family member or whoever it is, how he or she is responding or empathizing or, you know, listening properly. That is very important. If he or she is a biased person and he puts his perspective into it, then things may get worse, right? So it is very important to choose that person properly.
Okay, so I'd love to talk about this. If I think, okay, so first of all, I think when you invite a third person into a conversation, in any context ever, you have to first be willing to accept. Because if you're not willing to accept even this conversation, if I'm not willing to accept your question, you're not going to get a response from me that will, you know, easily flow. So it's the same. You have to be willing to accept what a third person is saying first. Second, you have to be open. Open towards yourself that I might receive a perspective that I might be shocked to understand that this is actually how it looks like. Third is that I think that when it comes to talking to a third person, we tend to get lost in our imagination of what we have to do. Like you said, you don't have to disclose your diagnosis. You don't have to disclose your symptoms. You don't have to do that. Just think about it like this. You're in your room all day, right? You can't tell the smell of your stuffy room, but when you enter into my room after, you'll instantly notice. It's the same. So you're just inviting a third person in to tell you your room smells weird.
Yeah.
You know, but talking to somebody does not have to have a personal pressure on yourself where you say, I have to disclose this, I have to tell him this, or I have to be very specific. No, sometimes it can, you know, you'll be very surprised to see, but sometimes, have you ever tried talking to a stranger, by the way?
I often do talk to strangers, yeah.
Yeah, but have you ever done it like কথা je মনে করেন আপনি বাইরে গেছেন এখন
বাসের মধ্যে suppose somebody sitting beside me and all of a sudden I start a conversation, it happens.
Okay, the যখন এই conversationটা করছেন আপনার কাছে কি, how do you feel afterwards?
It depends on what kind of information I have shared with him. I know exactly what you're talking about. So, I mean, first of all, thinking up to which extent should I share this information, right? Yes. So what you're saying is like I need to be open. I cannot keep anything within myself so that he or she understands the entire condition. That's
no. Like my point is that the first step with anything that is a problem is to first, you have to open yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be open to the criticism. You have to be open to the help.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, it's like taking a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink if it's not thirsty.
Right.
So, no matter how much you and I talk, or even if you say, hey, Tanzi, you're feeling sad, let me talk to you. even if I don't want to receive your help, it's a waste of time for you, it's a waste of time for me.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that when I'm having this conversation with you, যখন বলবো যে ভাই আমার মনটা খারাপ, তাই না? আমি যখন আপনার সাথে কথা বলবো যে ভাই আমার মন খারাপ, আমার কিন্তু নিজের উপর ওই প্রেশারটা আমি দিতে চাচ্ছি না যে ভাইয়াকে আজকে আমার সব কিছু বলতে হবে। ঠিক আছে, আমার বলতে হবে যে আমার প্রবলেম এটা হয়েছে না। It can just, that's what I'm saying, that being with a third person, when you invite a third person into your life, doesn't have to be about these things that you think. Because what I feel a lot of the times that we tend to assume that conversation will follow a pattern because of the pop culture or the cultural references that we have and the media that we've seen.
Okay.
And you know, the influence it has made in terms of our understanding. And I feel like a lot of the stigma that exists in our culture comes from this misrepresentation or misunderstanding of what mental health is. I mean, artists are art is a form of expression, right? This is your form of expressing yourself, sorry. So when we watch these shows, for example, like the movie A Beautiful Mind, it's about a schizophrenic individual who struggles, and we really get to see, and the director and the production, they did an excellent job in being able to capture actually how this man was living his life and what he was suffering. But that's not the same case for everyone. With schizophrenic disorder. You know, it comes in many different ways
forms.
and sizes. So it's the same. Like I think in Bangladesh, we witness extreme cases, and extreme cases require extreme intervention. So when you have interventions je acha take mental hospital পাঠায় দেওয়া হচ্ছে, আমরা কিন্তু কি দেখি images গুলা বাংলাদেশে of, you know, people not necessarily behaving according to what society deems as normal. কিন্তু এটা is not the only, this is not what mental health looks like. The same way you can say diabetes does not look like me, does not look like you. তাহলে mental health কিভাবে you can say যে পাগলখানায় গেলেই হবে। এবং আরেকটা হচ্ছে যে I feel that এইসব media exposure I feel people misunderstand it. Again, they miss the point. It's an artist's expression of something that is prominent, that they need people to know, or they want people to know, right? So if it's that, then you cannot say যে হ্যাঁ পাগলখানায় যাবে, বা mental health problem বা মাথায় সমস্যা আছে পাগলখানায় যাবে বা পাগলখানায় পাঠায় দাও. It's very offensive. It's the same like the other day when I asked you a question saying that when you're in the car and you see beggars begging, do you roll down your window and point and say ha ha you're a beggar, or ha ha you don't have an arm? No. So then why are we laughing about this? Why are we stigmatizing it and demeaning it? My question is why do we demean this? কেন এটা খুব নোংরা ভাবে বলা হয় যে পাগলখানায় যেতে হবে, বা like, you know, I've met a lot of people in Bangladesh who might suffer from, you know, mental disorders, and it's like কথায় maybe friends will say হ্যাঁ ও তো পাগল. No. Don't throw out these things so lightly.
Exactly. The way our society reacts to these cases is also very difficult to understand, because you know, as I started by saying that every 2 out of 10 people may have mental disorders, and if they becomes victim of this kind of, you know, judgment or discrimination or reaction, the things may get worse. Right, so this is one very important area of concern. So Tanzi, as we were saying, Bangladesh, like we live in a gender biased society, so there are a lot of girls now going to school and offices, but when it comes to this addressing mental health issues, I've seen that this is more prominent among the female segment of our society, especially girls don't want to open up. For example, I wanted to talk to a victim in today's show, but she was open about it. She actually shared all the hurdles that she has gone through for addressing her mental issues, but she was not ready to come in front of the camera.
Yeah, fair enough.
So what is your take on this?
if I was her too, and if I was also suffering from this, I don't think I would be brave enough to also come forward in our society. It's not that I'm saying that there aren't people or that this generation does not understand this better. I think with COVID, people really came to value mental health a bit more. So this is a good progress. However, society here is just, again, like we were just talking about in the beginning, যে ওর মাথায় সমস্যা আছে, ও মনে হয় পাগল. I can understand why somebody who might be suffering from some form of mental illness, and if they're working on themselves, it's a very difficult thing to also take on. It's basically you choosing to fight yourself against the world. And again, the culture over here, unfortunately, is still not open to empathize. I think the main lacking over here is empathy and really just understanding. Like, it's an enlightenment I feel that few people are able to achieve. And I think it's not that the mental stigma does not exist abroad either. It does. I think everywhere it does, but we have to start viewing this from a different angle, because if we continuously keep pointing at it, it's just going to get worse. And you mentioned that women tend to have more. I also, according to my research as well, I also found similar. And I think when I was reading it, what I could relate to it a little bit, because thinking back, I was thinking about this and I realized that growing up, you know, a lot of things, as a girl, you'd just sort of be like, it would just be assumed you'd just be okay with it. But মেনে নাও, কিছু হবে না, করতে হবে এটা, আমাদের এটা করতেই হবে, বা মেয়ে হলে এগুলো মানতেই হবে. So a lot, I mean, if you're being taught that, right, from the get-go, then of course your instinct is going to be to suppress and hide your issues. So I think that was very understandable why women are more likely to hide it, and it's more likely to go undiagnosed and unnoticed in females.
Yeah, and I think the same goes for some of the men as well, because, you know, the men are supposed to be strong, you know, but, you know, we are all human beings,
exactly.
right? So sometimes when, you know, it is told that, I mean, it happens, don't worry about it. You have to live with it, and you know, all three people are doing it, so you are one of them, and you have to deal with it as well. So the kind of situation that it puts that person in is very stressful, right?
It is.
So in such situations, like, where should a person go? Like, who is the right person to consult, apart from, you know, like what we said is a person who is close to, he can go and discuss, but do you think it is also important to talk to a clinical psychiatrist
I think that if, you know, it goes with any illnesses. If something is too much to bear and it crosses the threshold of what is normal, then I believe that you should seek consulting from a third party, which is a professional, of course, and an expert in their field. Now, there are clinical psychologists, there's also psychiatrists. You have to understand the difference between the
exactly.
both.
What is the difference? Like,
I've been told, again, I might be wrong, so nothing over here to be taken completely directly, but clinical psychologists are people who counsel, they listen, they work on your symptoms or your issues through therapy, like speech therapy or therapy. And then psychiatrists, I believe, are allowed to are doctors of medicine, and they're allowed to prescribe medication. So most likely, I feel that many people might suggest that you need to work with both at the same time. But again, this is a personal preference. By the way, your mental health journey and your mental health medical journey, I guess you could say that, is dependent solely on you, your comfort level, and how fast you want to go. That's the most important thing to remember. I don't feel that you should push yourself or be pushed. it's not going to work. Like I've said before, you stick an addict in a rehab.
It's a very sophisticated situation, and like it doesn't mean that if you take certain medicine then you'll be okay overnight.
Yeah,
right?
of
so
course
some
not.
some of the kind of mental sickness may take years to recover, and there are certain categories that people probably need to bear for the rest of
Yes.
their lives.
Yes.
So yeah, so if you could share something about the different type of mental disorders, like the different forms, the way they appear, the common in
like I would like to put out the disclaimer that I'm not a professional, but this is just my opinions and what research I've done that I'm speaking from. I think one of the most, if I'm not wrong, I think everybody, in conversation actually, I feel like we all say this when we do something repetitively or when we clean excessively, everybody just goes, it's my OCD, or it's so OCD, like, by the way, obsessive compulsive disorder is actually quite complicated, and people who suffer it severely, they really are unable to function in life, and it's very difficult. Like,
so it doesn't mean like if you have some common symptoms, you can't conclude that you have OCD. It's
right.
not advisable at all. However, there could be a segment who are having an OCD without even realizing that.
Yes.
So that is the most important part. So they need to know at what are the symptoms first of all, and when to consult a clinical psychiatrist or a psychiatrist.
This is a very difficult question to answer because it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, that this is a very unique and individual journey. We all experience it in many different ways. I don't mean, you're asking, Jay, how do I identify it, right? To be quite honest, mental health can affect anybody or
It's okay.
Anybody or nobody at any given time. You do not need to be mentally incapable or mentally challenged or have an issue to talk to somebody. Everybody, even healthy people should seek therapy. This is what therapists even say, to keep your mind fresh. Again, third perspective, what we were talking about before. So I think it might be a little too risky to say that, you have to self-identify and then that's how. I think that when you feel যে তোমার হ্যাবিটস বা আপনার যে কাজগুলো এখন করছেন এটা আপনার ডেইলি লাইফে ইন্টারফিয়ার করতেছে, it's causing blockages. For example, maybe you sanitize your hands too much to the point where now, maybe before you would eat something in the office হাত দিয়ে, এখন আপনি খাচ্ছেনই না, আপনি মেবি বাসা ছাড়া কোথাওই খাচ্ছেন না, এটা কিন্তু obviously interfering, মানে it's interfering with your daily all of a sudden আপনি দাওয়াতে যেতে পারছেন না, বা maybe you can't go out and meet your friend for coffee. So when your behavior is
impacting my normal life,
when it's causing proper disruptions in your daily life, then yes, I think that's probably when maybe you need to seek help or maybe identify.
So তুমি যেটা বলতে চাচ্ছ সেটা হচ্ছে যে যদি সিচুয়েশনটা এরকম দাঁড়ায় যে আমার নর্মাল যে ফাংশন সেটা আমি করতে পারছি না বিকজ অফ সার্টেন ইস্যুস, আমি মানে সে কনস্ট্যান্টলি হাত ধুয়ে যাচ্ছি, অথবা আমি কনস্ট্যান্টলি রাতের পর রাত ঘুমাতে পারছি না, অথবা আমি প্রপারলি মানুষের সাথে কমিউনিকেট করতে পারছি না, অথবা দেয়ার সার্টেন বিহেভিয়ারাল প্যাটার্নস অফ people that is disturbing me so much that আমি আমার কাজে কনসেন্ট্রেট করতে পারছি না. সো এরকম অনেক কিছুই হতে পারে যেগুলা আমার সহ্য ক্ষমতার বাইরে চলে যাচ্ছে, সহ্য ক্ষমতার বাইরে চলে যাচ্ছে, মানে হচ্ছে আমি আমার স্বাভাবিক জীবনযাত্রাকে আমার ইম্প্যাক্ট করছে. সো ইন দ্যাট কেস আই শুড সিক হেল্প. সো দিস ইজ ওয়ান থিং, অ্যান্ড দ্য আদার পার্ট ইজ যেটা হচ্ছে যে whenever these people goes to other individuals for help, তখন আমাদের দেশে একটা খুব common way of responding, especially by the elderly people, by the parents, is like it happens to everybody, যাও এগুলো নিয়ে চিন্তা করার দরকার নাই, ঠিক আছে, যাও নামাজ পড়ো, ঠিক হয়ে যাবে, ঠিক আছে. So but like at that point the victim becomes very helpless.
Yeah.
So is there any institution or any place where they can go and communicate? কারণ এই ব্যাপারটা হচ্ছে যে when you like আমি যখন রাস্তা দিয়ে যাই তখন আমি কিন্তু ডান দিকে বাম দিকে হসপিটাল দেখি, হ্যাঁ, so I know where to go for physical issues, but আমি কিন্তু এরকম ডান দিকে বাম দিকে আমি দেখি না যে মেন্টাল হেলথ নিয়ে এক্সপার্টরা বসে আছে, এবং এরকম এক্সাম্পলসও কিন্তু আমি দেখি না। সে ফর এক্সাম্পল somebody suffering from fever, I know যে to which doctor he went, because people come and tell me that okay, I was suffering from fever, I was suffering from COVID, or so I went to this doctor and that doctor is good. But আমরা এমন একটা সোসাইটিতে বাস করি যেখানে কেউ এসে বলবে না যে আমি এই একটা প্রবলেমে ছিলাম, so I went to a particular psychiatrist and I got solution for this. So this is a very difficult situation because we are not open about it. That is the most difficult part, that we are not open about it, and 80% of our parents think that দুই কালে দুইটা থাপ্পড় দিয়ে দিলে ঠিক হয়ে যাবে। হ্যাঁ, I'm telling you the fact, হ্যাঁ, যে ওকে জিন ধরছে, ওকে ভূত ধরছে, he is getting derailed, he is on drugs, or ওকে দুইটা থাপ্পড় দিয়ে দাও. These are the common solutions that we typically get from our parents, right? So how can we change this situation? I know it's a very difficult question, but to you, how can we change this situation?
So I want to try an exercise with you that I've tried with my mom before. Okay, so what do you call a child without an identified father?
Yeah, so বাংলায় বললে তো আমি বলবো যে অনাথ অথবা পিতৃহীন,
okay,
fatherless, or yeah.
English এ কি বলতেন? There's a word specifically that describes this.
I don't know the word.
Okay, maybe you might have to bleep this out, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
Apologies in advance. The word is bastard.
Oh, wow.
Right? Because the correct English definition for the word bastard is basically a son or a daughter, at least in the olden times, that's how it was used, to describe somebody who has been born or conceived illegitimately.
Okay.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So now my point is over here, I can now see this child and I can say this child is a bastard, and I would not be incorrect because dictionary definition I'm right on technicality. However, when I'm talking to you, I can also say this child does not have a father. What's the difference? I'm describing the same thing.
Yeah, we in the other word, I mean, you were much more empathetic in your second.
Exactly. So we can choose to say things like that, very offensively, to the point, or we can choose to speak differently. So the point I'm trying to make over here is that there's more than one way of saying something.
Yeah.
You, as the speaker, hold the responsibility to choose your words carefully and empathetically. I'm not telling you to go around it or rephrase it. I'm just saying that একটা কথার বলার ধরনটা is very important.
Yeah.
Your body language, how you respond to somebody when they're telling you something very important, or all of this counts, right? So it's important that you compose yourself in a way that does not hurt the person who's telling you about their emotional issues. I think first and foremost, you as a person, when somebody's telling you they have problems, you have to be non-judgmental. You have to create a safe space for the speaker to feel comfortable, because if you really want to help, then you have to create the safe space.
আমাদের যেটা প্রবলেম হয় that we don't want to take any responsibility, especially we're talking about the elderly people in our society. So আমরা মনে করি যে গায়ের জোরে যে কোনো জিনিস ঠিক করে দেওয়া সম্ভব. So that's why this reaction from our society, যে like দুই গালে দুইটা চড় দিলে সব ঠিক হয়ে যাবে. So এই টাইপের reactions চলে আসে because in a way I think this is a way of avoiding responsibility. Empathy তো অনেক পরের কথা, but this makes the things worse. So the first way of addressing this thing should be to be more sensible and to create awareness among everybody that it is normal that somebody may have mental issues.
Not just only this, I think when your parents are saying, এগুলো কিছু না গরিব জানা দিয়ে দেখো গরিব মানুষ আছে ওদের প্রবলেম আছে লাইফ ইজ the thing is that come to an understanding that we all suffer our own hell we all perceive information differently and comparison is the worst thing you can do.
Yes.
Because your life and my life is not the same.
For that person, comparison is the worst thing to do. Because
not only for that person.
আমার কাছে হয়তো মনে হচ্ছে যে okay, you are having a better life than a person who is living on the street, but in reality, because of the problems that you're facing, you are not actually having a better life than him. Maybe you're living in a secured environment and you're having food, but if something is you're not mentally happy, then it can be equally stressful as that of a person who is not privileged, right? So এই জিনিসটা এই acceptance-টা এই বোধটা এই সেন্সটা গ্রো করাটা আমাদের society is very important. Because otherwise what happens in our society, if you look at the stats, pre-2020, pre-COVID situation, we had on an average 10,000 suicide cases per year in our society, in Bangladesh itself. And after COVID, in 2020, it was 14,000 plus. So, I mean, at which level it gets so extreme? Did these people commit suicide only because of poverty? No. No.
It's not only, this is the point, and Bhaiya, I disagree that comparing I find is something that human beings don't know how to do properly. Because when you're comparing, we assume that if you have financial security, that means you're happy. But when you look at scientific research, it's people who don't have financial security at many places are the happiest.
Yeah.
They're able to enjoy life. So no, it's not correlated, first. Second, আমি যখন আমার নিজেরটা compare করতেছি with somebody who is having financial difficulties, for example, we forget it's not the same. That person has other variables in their life that I don't, and I have variables in my life that they don't. So you cannot compare. It's like comparing apples and oranges, but we always assume it's okay. But what we do when we compare something is we're imposing a limitation on the individual who you're giving this information to. Because you're now teaching this person, this is the boundary of what is normal.
Yeah.
This is the boundary. But ashole to eta na. Normal is apne, normal is ami, normal is everybody. So, ebhabe atkai dawata is a very difficult thing to do, and comparison only does this. When you compare yourself, even between you and me, oh, you have a smartwatch and I don't. This is a problem. It's a toxic behavior that we engage in.
And we start this behavior at a very early stage of somebody's life, starting from school.
Yes, it starts with school.
Yeah. I think you have seen the movie Tare Zameen Par,
yes,
right?
I have.
So it's just one example, right? And there's so many thousands of examples in our society that happens. And I feel really bad thinking about those small kids who suffer or go through this situation. I believe that you're also associated with a school with learning disabilities, right?
So I'd love to talk about this project. Actually, I stumbled upon it by mistake, and it was genuinely something that it made me really reevaluate and think of life and how actually things are very much connected. So I was there for another project, and this child was being left out. So upon further inquiry, we found that the teachers were basically describing his problems, which were similar to what is described for dyslexia. And the only reason why I know this is because one of my close friends suffered from it, and it's something that I was friends with her, so I got to see. So when I found this, I asked the NGO to maybe pursue some expert opinion as well. And then from that point onwards, what we did was that we initiated a program for children with learning disabilities in underprivileged societies. Because what was happening to this child was that he'd been told for the longest time that he's stupid because he doesn't know how to read, he doesn't try to memorize. But the teachers are not understanding the fact that he's unable to, because he's not even processing the information you're giving him.
এটাকে তুমি বলতেছিল
dyslexia, হ্যাঁ। Dyslexia হচ্ছে যে, for example, ও আমাকে বললো বাচ্চাটা যে ও সব লেটার উল্টা দেখে এবং ও লেখার সময় সব লেটার ও উল্টা লেখে। এবং ও কনসেন্ট্রেট করে না, আরও কয়েকটা সিমটম আছে। সে এগুলোতে মেলানোর পরে আমি পরে বাচ্চাটার সাথে বসে থেকে আমি কথা বলার চেষ্টা করলাম। বাচ্চাটা আমার সাথে কথা বলবেই না, মানে বলবেই না। হি ওয়াজ শোয়িং ক্লিয়ার সাইন্স অফ বিং ভেরি traumatized, you know, like
poor guy.
Yeah, you know, clearly, because he's been told that he's stupid this whole time. কথা বলতে পারে তো কথা বলে ও কথাই বলতো না।
I can share a similar case, just what you said. এখানে একটা বাচ্চা, ও হচ্ছে everybody thought that he has problems with his eyesight. তো ওকে একটা চোখের ডাক্তারের কাছে নিয়ে গেছে, এবং চোখের ডাক্তার অ্যাজ ইউজুয়াল যেটা করেছে সেটা হচ্ছে যে ওই অ্যালফাবেট পড়তে বলেছে, ঠিক আছে? সো হিজ প্রবলেম ওয়াজ হি কুড নট রিড দ্য অ্যালফাবেট, সো ও অ্যালফাবেট পড়তে পারতেছে না, অ্যান্ড দ্য আদার গাই ওয়াজ ইনক্রিজিং হিজ পাওয়ার। হ্যাঁ, তো দিস ওয়াজ আ উইয়ার্ড সিচুয়েশন। হ্যাঁ, তো পরবর্তীতে যে দেখছে যে অ্যাকচুয়ালি ওর চোখে সমস্যা না, ইট ইজ দ্যাট same problem that you mentioned.
You know, but see, this is the thing. When I found this child and he was unwilling to speak to me, even a normal conversation, it really hurt me. I won't lie. It was one of the moments, I think, in this job where I really did break down, because it was so unfair. He didn't deserve this. Yes, it's a problem, but it can be solved with intervention, with time, with the right resources. And then it made me think, and it made me realize that there must be other children like this who probably suffer from other learning disabilities, and they're just unable to vocalize it because they don't even know that it's a problem. They just think আমি কিছু পারি না, বা আমি stupid, বা আমি মেমোরাইজ করতে পারি না, বা আমি লেখাপড়া দুর্বল।
বাচ্চারা তো ওইভাবে এক্সপ্লেইনও করতে পারে না আসলে ব্যাপারটা।
কিন্তু হইতে পারে যে তুমি মেবি লেখাপড়ায় দুর্বল না, মেবি হইতে পারে যে the way you're perceiving, or the way the information is the medium through which the information is traveling to you, it's just not appropriate for you. Not one size fits all is not universal in this case. We also have to agree that some people take information and we process it differently. If we are able, see, this is my problem. When we talk about conversations like this, we're all able to accept this. Then explain to me, why is it that this child was subjected to this form of abuse by adults, people who are supposed to protect him, all because he was not able to memorize? We have to shift our priorities. We have to understand that the end goal is not to be able to memorize a whole text. The end goal should be to be able to rephrase the text in your own words so that you actually know how to understand and describe it. That should be the end goal, not the content. 1 + 1 is actually 2. Bhai, this has also been proven in math. The numbers are not absolute. You can have negative, positive numbers. So no, it's not one size fits all. We have to, and you know what? One thing that's having this discussion, it's not going to change anything. What's going to change is the minute when you as an individual choose and accept to open up to learning about more. If you don't, in life, I mean, maybe I'm not old enough to say this, but thus far, my experience doing CSR at Daraz, if you're not learning, you're not going to be enlightened. If you're not learning, you're not going to progress.
Absolutely.
If you're not learning, you're not going to grow. And learning just doesn't mean sitting in front of a book and reading prescribed texts and theories. It's actually seeking information to better yourself. If you know that you have a friend who is suffering from anxiety disorder, for example, research. Open up, find out what it means. What does it actually mean to suffer from anxiety? What causes this? Understand it. Bring yourself down to that, like the same, you know, what they say when you're disciplining a toddler, don't be at that level, because you're already, it's a very high, it's a perceptional, get down to their level. কথা বল, মানুষের সাথে কথা বলার সময় আই কন্ট্যাক্ট করে কথা বল। আমরা যদি এসব নিয়ম মানতে পারি, তাহলে কেন আমরা এই ক্ষেত্রে করতে পারি না? Be more mindful of the way you speak. Be more open and accepting. Without knowledge, you will not progress further. Without knowledge, you're not going to understand. And if you don't know what is an anxiety disorder, your friend can sit in front of you and cry for the rest of their life. They might even get worse, and you will not be able to communicate through to them only because you chose to be ignorant. So don't be ignorant. You want to help out someone, do it properly. Learn, read, and don't self-diagnose, right? It's the same with any physical ailments. If you're not going to self-diagnose I'm going to Google these symptoms list. I'm sure Google is going to tell me I have cancer or I'm dead already. One or two things. Same. Don't self-diagnose. Learn, seek help, open your mind up, work on being more self-critical, not self-critical, work on being more open as an individual. You know?
So আমাদের suggestions to the general people should be say first thing যেটা তুমি বললা যে learn from different sources, and you know you have to be at that level to understand the person properly, especially for kids. And if that is not an option, then to go and consult with a specialist, a professional. And it is important that we know about these professionals, where they are. And I think there are like a lot of places where we have this professionals who are trained to diagnose these issues, right?
Yes, we do. In Bangladesh, I'd love to I'd like to take a moment to mention this. If you are suffering from any sort of mental disorders or mental health issues, or you feel at any moment that you just need someone to talk to, there are, first of all, many apps on your phones that you can easily access on the Play Store, as well as the apps.
Can you name a few apps?
I believe there's one that's called 7 Health. I can give you a link to a few of them. Maybe you can add them in the description.
I can always have them, but for the people who would be watching our show,
listening.
That's why
there's BetterHelp. I know BetterHelp. I know there's Calm that also works. It's also a meditation app. I believe there's also thing is that if you look it up with anxiety or anything, you'll get
this
many,
list of apps.
Many. But these are a few that you can interact in with professionals. Yes, some of it is paid, and even to the point where you can even do it anonymously. So that is an option where they really cater to. Also, another thing is that there are institutions over here, private institutions and public as well, that provide mental health professionals access to people who need it. I know of one clinic very clearly due to my work, which is PHWC.
PHWC.
Yeah. PHWC, which is
Psychological Health and
Wellness Center. Yes.
Okay.
I believe they have their offices quite spread out around Dhaka. There are also other institutes as well that specifically cater to
What about those diagnostic centers as well, right? For example, prescription point আমার মনে হয়
prescription point আছে, lab aid আছে, Square আছে, hospital আছে. I mean, জানার ভিতর they have psychiatrists and psychologists. You have to
So আমি যেটা বলছিলাম একটু আগে যে রাস্তার ডান দিকে বাম দিকে we see these diagnostic centers. They also have these professionals. So sometimes some of us may not know about it, but they have experienced professionals যাদের কাছে যে হয়তো কথা বলা যেতে পারে. All right.
And also sometimes in schools you have guidance counselors for students to access to.
But you know, honestly speaking, there are very few schools. এগুলো হচ্ছে খুব এক্সপেন্সিভ ইংলিশ মিডিয়াম স্কুল, ওগুলোতেই থাকে এরকম স্পেশাল ফ্যাসিলিটিস, বাট in general আমার মনে হয় 95% of our students don't have this facility, and I feel really sorry about this segment actually.
It is it's very also one thing I wanted to mention, actually I forgot, when you were saying that, you know, I think it's a very common thing that we do in Bangladesh যে ভাইয়া আপনার যে প্রবলেমটা ছিল ওই ডক্টরটা যে দিয়েছেন ওনার নাম্বারটা দেন, right? Mental health is not so easy, okay? You're talking to, you please remind yourself that you're talking to a person. So when you're befriending somebody, you check their personality and you see if you get along, right? You vibe or not. If you don't vibe, you won't have a conversation. If you go to a therapist and it doesn't vibe or it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean যে you're hopeless. Life এ কিছু হবে না, আমি কোনোদিনও ঠিক হবে না.
I can always consult with a second person.
sometimes it takes a while to find the right person
আচ্ছা
to talk to confide in, to feel comfortable.
আরেকটা জিনিস হচ্ছে টু এক্সপ্লেইন মাই সিচুয়েশন এটা তো এরকম না যে আমার ব্লাড টেস্ট করে কিছু স্যাম্পল দিয়ে বুঝে ফেললো ডাক্তার হ্যাঁ ইট ইজ সামথিং হাউ দ্য কনভারসেশন গোজ এখানে দুটো জিনিস বোধহয় ইম্পর্টেন্ট সেটা হচ্ছে আমি কিভাবে এক্সপ্লেইন করছি আর আমি যাকে এক্সপ্লেইন করছি সে কীভাবে নিচ্ছে বিং এ স্পেশালিস্ট অলসো সো সব ক্ষেত্রে যে সব ধরনের প্রবলেমের ক্ষেত্রে একটা সলিউশন একজন দিতে পারবে ইট ইজ নট নেসেসারি সো
also keep in mind that when you're asking somebody who might be seeing a therapist or might be seeking help, they might not be very willing to actually share their counselor's number. You have to be okay with this because think about it. You're talking to this individual about your personal problems, right? And like, okay, আমি আপনার কাছে আসতেছি আমি আপনাকে আমার প্রবলেমসগুলো বলছি এখন আমাকে আমার খালাতো ভাই ফোন করে জিজ্ঞাসা করলো যে তোর থেরাপিস্টের নাম্বারটা দে ওকে আমি দিব না আমি দিতে চাবো না স্বাভাবিক because I'm telling you secrets or I'm telling you things that I want to remain private.
That there is a fear যে আপনার খালাতো ভাই তোমার খালাতো ভাই জেনে যাবে
no it's not a fear it's just that there's a boundary right and you shouldn't be ashamed of keeping this boundary. You have to be able to differentiate between what is yours, what you need for your mental well-being and not necessarily what are my obligations to my family. Not everybody feels comfortable sharing a therapist. It's not about my therapist is by the way these professionals they are professionals for a reason. They're not there to go and scream about your issues from rooftops. Confidentiality is everything to them. And they respect this to the highest extent.
And you were mentioning the other day, Jay, they are not even allowed to diagnose their personal family members.
Yeah, for sure. Like people, there is a huge conflict of interest over here. So be
just
a little
like lawyers, I think lawyers also have the same thing.
So be a little sensitive. Maybe your friend might not want to tell you what therapists are going to, but yeah, you can ask for where it is or what it isn't. But maybe keep that boundary. I think it's important.
We have internet, so internet these informations are available, right?
Of course, there's more information available on this. I think on the not only just on the internet, like there are helplines. Ami Jani Bangladesh Kanpete Roy Acta Foundation, suicide hotline. They're available 24 hours.
This is a very excellent initiative that has been taken initially,
it has.
and I wonder how they function. I've never experienced that. But yeah. So Kanputi's phone number আছে?
Phone number আছে, hotline number আমার কাছে মুখস্থ নাই.
Let's just Google it and it's worth mentioning here.
Kanputi's I thought it was a very beautiful project.
So Kanputi's has this website I think shuni.org এবং এখানে there are like বেশ কয়েকটা বড় বড় নাম্বার দেওয়া আছে বাংলালিংক গ্রামীণ ফোন এয়ারটেল টেলিটক সবগুলো নাম্বারই দেওয়া আছে. So I think there are people helping from these numbers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think first and foremost, I want to very much repeat myself in this one matter. It's important to understand you're not alone in this.
Yeah.
And that having these problems is not the end of the world. You have to not allow yourself to be stigmatized. There is always another option. And you feeling sad and depressed, this is what depression is meant to do. It's meant to isolate you. I'm going to quote something from Harry Potter, and I think this really stuck by me even as a child. When J.K. Rowling was asked why she had on what basis had she created her Dementors, and she said that it was like the time from when she was depressed, that like how a Dementor sucks the soul out individually. So it was like isolating, and that's just it. You have to remember this, that your mind is an incredible organ, and it's crazy. And if you isolate yourself, and not only just with mental health, anything, if you
even
isolate
for fear, it works the same way.
Yes, if you isolate yourself, it's game over. And don't do that. And nothing in this life is unfixable. Nothing. This is a gift. Our life is a gift. Our mind is a gift. and we have to nurture it. We have to take care of it the same way we take care of our physical ailments and our physical body. Without a solid mental well-being, you will not function. It's a truth. ভালো মানুষও অসুস্থ হয়ে যেতে পারে, so নিজে
and
take care করতে হবে.
there are examples, like there are so many people, like famous people, starting from popular artists to engineers to innovation experts, who actually gone through severe level of mental illness, but they still manage to come out of it and create something great. So thank you, Tanzi, for giving me time. I think my audience will be enlightened with the kind of conversation and the information that you said. It's going to be very useful for many of us. So in future, abar jodi sujog hoy, then we will talk
For sure.
in much more detail. All right. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paya, for the opportunity, and thank
My
you
pleasure.
for this as well. Thank you for giving me this platform to talk about it, and thank you for actually wanting to talk about this. I think it's very important. So thank you for your
I really
time as well.
appreciate that as well. Thank you.